Everyone is watching the politicians sign treaties in Athens right now. They think a few signatures and handshakes are what's actually keeping Eastern Europe from freezing. But look at the physical reality. The real power is a 300-meter steel leviathan anchored in the Aegean Sea, backed by a 50-year-old Soviet pipeline system. Engineers aren't drafting policies. They are using massive compressor stations to violently reverse the flow, blasting gas northbound at maximum pressure to create an impenetrable physical wall. They take liquid gas at minus 162 degrees Celsius, boil it with seawater, and force 5.5 billion cubic meters through the steel veins. Wait a minute. Do you actually believe your monthly energy bill is simply dictated by the natural supply and demand of a free and open global market? Or is it funding the brutal operating expenses of these reverse flow compressors running at redline? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's do the math. Welcome to Energy Axis Intel. Look, everyone is talking about the politics, but they are
We have reached a historic agreement today.
And the plumbing.
This pipeline secures energy for the entire
region.
region.
Of European solidarity and sudden independence. But independence isn't a piece of paper signed in a boardroom. It is heavy metallurgy. It is a massive physical barrier built by reversing the thermodynamics of a pipeline system designed 50 years ago. While diplomats take the credit, mechanical engineers are the ones actually altering the geopolitical gravity of the continent with extreme pressure and steel. You don't defeat a monopoly with speeches. You break it by aggressively forcing billions of cubic meters of gas against its original current. This is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics. But make no mistake, every single rotation of those turbines is engineered to drain your wallet.
We must ensure that
If
all
you
member
listen
states
to the
are
press
aligned
briefings
on this
out
critical
of
issue.
Brussels,
Our
the
unity
vertical
is our
corridor
strength.
is framed as a miracle of modern European diplomacy. They promise a seamless transition away from Russian dependence. A sudden liberation for Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Romania, all achieved through sheer political willpower. They paint a picture of a clean, futuristic energy network. A system that will smoothly integrate green hydrogen and solve the energy crisis overnight. It sounds perfect on paper, but paper doesn't have to withstand extreme thermal expansion, and speeches don't move billions of cubic meters of gas. The public is led to believe that rerouting a continent's energy supply is as simple as flipping a switch on a digital dashboard. They sell the illusion of cheap, abundant energy flowing effortlessly from the Mediterranean directly into the heavy industrial heartland of Eastern Europe. This vertical corridor is marketed as an elegant, frictionless highway, a geopolitical shield protecting citizens from the harsh realities of global energy extortion. But let's look at the physical reality. You cannot rewire a 50-year-old grid without fighting a brutal, expensive war against fluid dynamics. Nature wants gas to flow from high pressure to low pressure. The Soviet engineers spent decades optimizing that exact gravity from north to south. Overturning that gravity isn't a diplomatic victory. It is a violent mechanical intervention that requires burning massive amounts of energy just to function. The elites promise freedom, but they carefully hide the monstrous machinery and the staggering daily cost required to actually force that gas uphill. Let's look at the physical reality of Alexandroupolis. This isn't just a boat, it's a massive 300-meter floating thermodynamics factory permanently anchored in the sea. American supertankers pull up and offload liquefied natural gas. But to transport it across the ocean, they had to shrink it 600 times its normal volume. How? By freezing it down to minus 162 degrees Celsius. At that extreme temperature, the gas turns into a dense, volatile, liquid state. Now the FSRU has to wake the monster up. It sucks in massive amounts of seawater from the Aegean to violently boil that cryogenic liquid back into gas. The temperature shock causes an immediate thermal expansion. The liquid furiously vaporizes, expanding outward with enough raw kinetic energy to tear apart normal steel completely. That's why the plumbing here requires heavy-duty cryogenic alloys. Once it vaporizes, the gas is blasted into the interconnector grease, Bulgaria. This is where physics gets brutal. Remember, the original Soviet pipes were built to let gas fall south using
the pressure
natural
is spiking on the red line
gravity.
conduit.
Reroute the coolant immediately.
To reverse it, you are
It's not
literally
holding. We
fighting
have seconds
the laws
until
of
blowback.
fluid dynamics. You don't just ask the gas to turn around. You beat it into submission. Engineers ignite massive turbine compressor stations, roaring like jet engines inside concrete bunkers. These compressors slam the gas with extreme high pressure, creating an artificial mechanical wall that forces 5.5 billion cubic meters northbound against the original current. Think of it like trying to force a raging river to flow back up a mountain using nothing but sheer horsepower and heavily reinforced steel valves. The friction inside the 50-year-old steel pipes is immense. Every single weld and joint is screaming under the stress of this aggressive, unnatural reverse flow. If a pressure valve fails under this load, the thermodynamic blowback would be catastrophic. The entire network relies on these compressors running flawlessly at red-line capacity. The sheer amount of electricity and fuel required to keep those turbines spinning 24/7, it is absolutely staggering. You are burning energy to move energy. This isn't a political victory. It is a brutal, high-stakes mechanical war against gravity and temperature, heavily dependent on the absolute limits of modern metallurgy and engineering. The concrete and steel don't care about your treaties. They only understand pressure, heat, and the continuous flow of billions of dollars to keep the turbines alive. Let's step out of the turbine room and look at the ledger. Building this 300-meter floating thermodynamics factory didn't come cheap. The initial capital expenditure to construct the floating factory, reinforce the deep water ports, and upgrade the massive Soviet-era compressor stations is absolutely staggering. We are talking about multiple billions of dollars permanently sunk into heavy metallurgy, specialized cryogenic alloys, and hundreds of thousands of tons of underwater concrete. But who actually takes on the massive financial risk of building this vertical energy shield? If you think it is the private energy corporations, you are wrong. The corporations don't gamble with concrete at this scale. The foundational risk is almost entirely absorbed by the public sector and European Union subsidies. Taxpayer money acts as the financial bedrock. It flows through Brussels directly into the hands of the maritime engineering firms laying the steel. The public essentially buys the metal, pours the concrete, and assumes all the geopolitical construction risks while the elite watch the concrete dry. Wait a minute. Why exactly would massive private capital step aside during the most critical and expensive phase of building Europe's new physical energy gateway? Because in mega infrastructure, laying the pipe is a liability. The real money isn't in owning the raw steel. It is in controlling the toll booth. Once the public has fully funded the capital expenditure, the physical asset is essentially handed over to private operators through long-term exclusive management contracts. These operators don't carry the massive debt of building the high-pressure pipeline. They simply step in to control the thermodynamic valves and charge a premium. It is a brilliant financial mechanism. Socialize the massive cost of the physical construction and privatize the cash flow generated by every single molecule. You, the taxpayer, finance the heavy steel shield to protect the continent, while the operators lock in decades of guaranteed transit fees. The geopolitical crisis was the perfect catalyst to bypass strict financial regulations, allowing billions in public funds to be rapidly converted into private infrastructure. So, when the politicians celebrate their new energy independence, remember who actually paid for the heavy machine and who is quietly collecting the tolls. Now, look at the operating expenses. Building the machine is one thing, but keeping it alive in the Aegean Sea is a daily financial hemorrhage. To vaporize 5.5 billion cubic meters of liquid gas, you have to relentlessly pump millions of gallons of corrosive seawater through the heat exchangers. Salt water is the ultimate enemy of metallurgy. It actively eats away at the heavy steel, requiring continuous chemical treatments and anti-corrosion maintenance just to prevent a catastrophic breach. Every hour the FSRU operates, it is burning a massive amount of its own gas simply to power its internal systems and maintain cryogenic storage temperatures. Then you have the onshore compressor stations. Forcing gas backward against its natural gravity requires running massive industrial turbines at redline capacity 24 hours a day. These are basically jet engines bolted to concrete. They consume staggering amounts of electricity, creating an astronomical monthly power bill just to maintain the reverse flow pressure wall. Add the maritime insurance premiums. Anchoring a high-value, highly volatile strategic asset in open waters requires top-tier security protocols, dedicated escort vessels, and exorbitant risk coverage. If a single heavy-duty valve fails under the extreme thermodynamic stress, the entire vertical corridor shuts down. The maintenance crews are fighting a relentless, expensive war. They are replacing worn-out bearings, resealing cryogenic joints, and inspecting 50-year-old welded seams that were never originally designed to handle this kind of aggressive reverse pressure. This is the OPEX bleed. It doesn't make the evening news, but it is a relentless physical reality. You cannot negotiate with friction, heat, or salt. The operators simply calculate the staggering daily cost of this mechanical war, factor in their profit margin, and pass the entire heavy bill directly down the line. Let's bring this massive industrial reality directly to your kitchen table. You don't live in a vacuum. You live downstream from these roaring reverse flow compressor turbines. Every single time those 50-year-old steel valves fight against natural fluid dynamics, it requires a massive, constant injection of raw electricity and heavy marine fuel. The physical friction inside the interconnector pipeline isn't just an engineering hurdle. It is a direct multiplier applied to the base cost of your natural gas. When the Alexandroupolis plant vaporizes liquid gas at minus 162 degrees,
Ready? One,
the sheer
two,
thermal
three,
energy
push!
required gets baked
It moved
right
a little.
into your
Keep
monthly
going.
utility invoice. The operators don't absorb the crushing daily cost of saltwater corrosion or high-pressure maintenance. They simply recalibrate the thermodynamic loss and pass it to the grid. Wait a minute. Think about your last energy bill. You aren't just paying for the gas money. You are personally financing the violent mechanical war against gravity. As European heavy industries struggle to absorb these inflated operating expenses, the cost of manufacturing everyday goods skyrockets. It triggers a slow, grinding industrial inflation cycle. The steel trap is completely closed. By locking the entire continent's energy security into a massive artificial pressure system, the operators guarantee a permanent financial drain. You are effectively paying a premium toll tax to the Aegean Sea gatekeepers every time you turn on your heater or buy locally manufactured industrial products. The thermodynamic inefficiency of moving gas backward is monetized at your expense. Nature's gravity was free. Defeating it with massive turbine horsepower is brutally expensive. So, while politicians celebrate their paper treaties, your wealth is quietly being extracted by the relentless, invisible friction inside 300 miles of heavy steel piping. Let's pivot and look at the smart money. When the thermodynamic cost of reversing this gas flow destroys retail energy margins, who actually wins? The apex predators aren't the nations consuming the gas. They are the Greek shipping oligarchs and the specialized midstream infrastructure funds controlling the metal. While European governments burn through taxpayer subsidies to fight fluid dynamics, these shipping magnates own the specialized cryogenic vessels and the floating regasification units. They don't care if the gas flows north or south. They don't care about the daily market price of the molecules inside the pipes. simply charge a fixed, non-negotiable premium for every single cubic meter that passes through their heavily guarded steel valves and high-pressure compressor stations. By locking desperate nations into rigid 20-year infrastructure leasing contracts, they insulate themselves entirely from inflation and energy market volatility. You are watching a massive transfer of public wealth directly into private maritime holding companies, all disguised as an urgent geopolitical security measure. But their real mechanical genius isn't just surviving this current crisis. It is a calculated long-term trap deeply embedded inside the steel itself. Every new kilometer of this vertical corridor was meticulously engineered and welded to a specific heavy-duty industrial standard. They call it being completely hydrogen-ready. The media celebrates this as a green transition. But look at the concrete reality. It is a 50-year monopoly locked in heavy metallurgy. Whether Eastern Europe eventually buys green hydrogen from Egypt or newly discovered natural gas from the massive deep-water fields off the coast of Israel, it doesn't matter. The raw energy must physically pass through this exact same Aegean gateway and be compressed by these exact same roaring turbines. The operators have future-proofed their toll booths. They built a thermodynamic choke point that guarantees half a century of relentless, uninterrupted cash flow. This is how the elite truly operate. They don't bet on fleeting political treaties. They secure the physical choke points of tomorrow's energy matrix. They use advanced metallurgy and specialized pressure standards to legally prohibit any alternative supply chain from ever entering the heavy industrial heartland of Europe. Let's do the math on your own portfolio. Most retail investors try to play the energy crisis by buying standard utility companies or end-user distributors. That is
destroying
a terrible
retail
mistake.
margins to reveal the
Those
midstream
retail
wealth.
providers are the ones bleeding cash, forced to absorb the massive operating expenses of this reverse flow mechanical war. The smart capital pivots entirely away from the molecule and focuses strictly on the metal.
Watch the
Stop
line, easy
gambling
now.
on the unpredictable price
Bring
of
it down
natural
50
gas.
centimeters.
Instead, you need to look at specialized midstream infrastructure exchange traded funds or maritime holding corporations that lease out FSRU vessels and compressor technology. These entities operate on long-term inflation-adjusted transit contracts. They collect steady dividends based purely on the raw volume of physical energy moving through pipes. By aligning your capital with the midstream toll booths, you detach your wealth from the chaotic geopolitical headlines and the bleeding operating costs of retail. You essentially become a silent partner in the mechanical monopoly. Let the politicians debate and let the taxpayers fund the heavy concrete foundations. Your only concern should be owning a fractional piece of the steel valves that dictate the thermodynamic survival of an entire heavily industrialized continent. Geography is nothing but a piece of scratch paper. It is an illusion for politicians to draw imaginary lines and debate over temporary borders. The real, undeniable geopolitical power of a continent is forged entirely in heavy metallurgy and hundreds of thousands of tons of underwater concrete. A treaty signed in a boardroom can be torn up overnight. But you cannot simply erase a massive, high-pressure thermodynamic choke point. When you force billions of cubic meters of gas backward against natural gravity, you permanently alter the financial and industrial flow of nations. The countries that control these massive reverse flow compressors and extreme temperature cryogenic valves are the ones actually dictating the survival of Eastern Europe. They don't need military force to enforce their will. They simply hold the keys to the mechanical toll booths that keep heavy industry alive. While the public is distracted by geopolitical theater, the smart money quietly secures the physical choke points of tomorrow. The elite watch the concrete. Look south to the eastern Mediterranean. Trillions of cubic meters of newly discovered natural gas are sitting beneath the deep water off the coast of Israel. When those massive offshore rigs finally come online, that raw energy has to go somewhere. It will inevitably flow toward the heavy industrial demand of Europe. But here is the brutal reality. To reach those markets, it must physically pass through the exact same Aegean gateway and hit the exact same toll booth. So let me ask you this. When that massive Mediterranean supply finally hits the steel valves and vertical corridor, who really controls the pricing? Does the power belong to the nation extracting the gas, or the corporate operators who own the thermodynamic choke? Drop your answer below. The era of cheap natural energy gravity is permanently over. Welcome to the new world of high-pressure mechanical monopolies and relentless operating expenses. Stop reading the daily political headlines and start watching the concrete, the heavy metallurgy, and the actual thermodynamic flow of global capital. Remember, the elite always watch the concrete while the public watches the news. Keep your mind open, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.